Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. I haven't done one of these in a while. I stopped doing them because everybody was doing so well. Everybody was, making loads of money. It was just becoming same. But here we are. You're on my lap. You're backdoor Barry. You've got an elephant in the background.
This is the empire, mate. I'm literally doing this call from my 6-year-old boy's bedroom because it's the only room in the house with a desk in it.
Mm.
And the old woo flu means we're having to limit the amount of trips we make to the office.
Jesus. So for anybody that's listening, I'm based in Santa Barbara for the next week because we're stranded here. And we've got our flight to get back down to the south of England where we live beside Barry. Barry, just quickly introduce yourself.
Backdoor Barry. I am the lawyer to the recruitment industry. I focus all my time on getting recruiters paid, whether that's because clients don't want to pay, aren't able to pay, or just haven't realised yet that they're going to.
And both of us are sporting fabulous beards right now.
Mine's going a wee bit grey though, to be honest with you. I think it's all the stress of the last week.
But in these times, surely it's a great time to be a lawyer.
Yeah, well, look, commercially, things are good for us. But at the same time, the idea of putting a smile on my face, I'm not sure I can quite go that far. Our workload's up. I'd say probably up 5 times in the last week, inquiries. But it comes a whole bunch of new challenges, in relation to how you go about getting money and how you go about getting paid for your work.
Okay, so people aren't paying bills right now. Some of them aren't. What's the first thing that you hear from the?
So we've been keeping a bit of a tally of debtors that are throwing up the coronavirus excuse. I think we're up to 17 now. I think it's around about 17, of which over half were already 100 days plus overdue by the time anybody even knew coronavirus was a thing.
Yeah.
So it's being used as an excuse by a lot of people. There's a fair few out there, which is fair play. It's a massive issue to the business, a massive issue to cash flow. That some people are just using it to chance their arm.
Yeah, and I'm going to hand you over a case today on that front. And it's, with this type of thing, like I could absolutely smash them online. I could just keep hammering, but I would end up spending my whole time stressed and being anxious and thinking about it too much. So like, what I do in this circumstance, I just hand, after 2 weeks, if they're becoming like difficult, I just hand it straight to you. I'm like, you couldn't pay me the money to go through that bit and that back and forth, because I always find I just get so worked up, and it really is just it's the most horrible thing. What are you seeing out there in the marketplace right now outside of the coronavirus? People refusing to pay. What's the general sentiment?
I don't think there is a general sentiment. I think there's quite a range of responses that we're seeing. We're seeing some people panicking and just going for a cash grab. They want everybody to pay everything now. We've got some clients who are saying, get us a third of the invoice value and we'll settle. Yeah, just because they're worried about their own businesses. They're worried about their cost base. They're worried about the revenues that are coming in the near future. They're worried about their own clients potentially going bust. And then ultimately getting paid nothing. There's a lot out there that are panicking, But then at the other side of that, I've had at least 3 clients phone me up and say, "Hey, listen, if any of we're looking for bolt-ons to our group. If any of your good recruiter clients are finding it difficult and they need a bit of cash to make sure they survive through this next period, we're happy to talk to them about bringing them into the group and investing into the future." Because
what type of examples could you give me on that in terms of industry spectrums?
These are recruiters that have a group and that have already a range across tech and pharma and construction in different parts, and they're just open to plugging in people from any space outside of their existing space. Do you see what I mean? So it's not like they've said to me, they've not given me a mandate and said, find me a legal recruiter or find me this or find me that. What they're saying is, if any of your good well-run recruitment agencies are struggling and they're worried about their future, then talk to us. And they're open to pretty much any area as plugins to their existing portfolio. The point I'm making about that is this: there are people out there who are looking beyond coronavirus already, and they're confident that run well, they'll do well, and they'll survive on the other side. I've got to give this quote to I've got to give a testimonial to, I think it's David Stone, MRL Group, who I think I'm going to owe him 10p for saying this, because he said he wants 10p every time I say it. But I heard him say on LinkedIn the other day, the steel is forged in the fire. You know, if your business can survive this, you'll be so well placed to really move on in the market and really do well in your market once you get out of the other side.
Well, he already navigated the GFC. He's been in business a long time.
Yeah,
I am interested to hear more from guys like that. Fair weather recruiters like myself, who
well, fair weather, you say, while sitting in California. Yeah.
I'm of the millennial recruiter generation, even though I've got a couple of years on that because I got into the industry a bit later. But it's this is the first time we've struggled for mandates ever. And I had a bit of this when we went. Things started when I started in Oz. By the time I finished in Oz, things started slowing down. But I moved to Canada, and then I got caught in that downturn there, and I really experienced it. But it was a downturn. It wasn't. This is turned off. So, what sectors do you think will still be hiring? Are we looking at food supplies, some type of mechanical engineering stuff towards the medical industry?
I think some parts of pharma are still going to be hiring, because again, a lot of those businesses, there's such long-term projects that they're working on that it goes beyond this. Construction, I suspect so. Maintenance and real core stuff. There's going to be an impact though on construction in that sort of the commercial property building, residential property building, that sort of stuff, where investors might be getting a bit nervous and turning off the taps, which in turn might have an impact on those shorter term projects. So I think that they could have some issues there. Healthcare is going to be doing really well. They're still going to be hiring. Food supply still going to be hiring. I think there's still going to be a lot of pretty buoyant markets out there. It's just a question of whether you're in those spaces and whether you're agile enough to be able to adapt to get into those spaces if it's on your periphery.
Yeah, I'm pretty agile. We're gonna have to pivot to something. It'll likely be tech and executive sales. So I'm kind of working on that at the moment, but it's just about securing enough cash flow between now and then to make sure everything is up and running, and to come out on the other side of this with our trousers still up is key. Can I ask you about the news came out from the government about some of the schemes that are going to be out there to help employers? Have you looked into the legal ramifications of who is eligible and who is not?
I haven't looked into much of it, because one of the challenges with this, it's unfair on them to say with governments right now, is they're having to respond so quickly that there are some announcements being made on the basis of, here's what we're doing, give us a week and we'll come up with some details. So it's early stages on a lot of it. So it's quite difficult to say what applies, what doesn't apply. There's a lot of conversation within the accountancy and the legal world at the moment around what a furloughed worker is.
Right. Yeah.
Not a term that most of us recognised as a term previously.
Yeah.
So now there's lots of hand wringing around. Well, hang on a second. What is a furloughed worker? What does it mean? Broadly speaking, I'm taking it to mean someone that you would have made redundant if it wasn't for this lifeline.
Yeah.
That's broadly speaking how I'm approaching it.
And what about if you're a director of your own company? Do you think that you will fall in under self-employed, or could you essentially sack yourself?
Yeah, well, I think it's academic, really, isn't it? Because if you're self-employed, you've not been given a lifeline yet. There's talk of that changing. So let's hear what Boris has to say for himself in probably in about half an hour or so. Yeah. He'll be up at the lectern again. But currently there's nothing. But then previously, they made a pronouncement in relation to pubs and restaurants. Pubs and restaurants went, well, hang on a second, you've just protected all the insurers out there by not telling us to close. And then they turned around and changed that and said, right, you have to close. So they reacted to that. Again, it's about these agile responses, right? So yeah. The last pronouncement was effectively left the self-employed out. Yeah. But I don't think that was a positive decision. I don't think they sat there and went, well, let's not look after the self-employed. Excuse me. I suspect they just didn't think of them.
Right? Patch that through the internet, can I?
Yeah, I think you should be all right. So I think they didn't think of self-employed distinctions, and this is where pronouncements, then details coming afterwards, means there has to be changes to approach. I suspect they didn't consider the legal ramifications of the difference between an employee or a worker and a self-employed person. So they probably intended to cover everybody, but then just the wording didn't cover it. So I suspect the next announcement will cover that. Because if you think about it, in practical terms,
just want to drip feed good news as well, right?
To some degree. But I suspect also, in practical terms, if you think about it, most directors that, SME directors who own their own company, they're paying themselves relatively low salaries, and the rest are on dividends anyway. Yeah. So covering 80% of your salary wouldn't actually be all that much money.
No, it's 80% of 12 grand effectively for most people. Yeah. But like if you're a small business owner and you and your wife are directors of that business, it pays the mortgage, or it helps to keep for us one of our people, It's every little counts while you're waiting to get bills paid. Like it's for me, looking at the landscape, all the deals that we've done that can't be pushed from June on to September because of redundancy, that's gone. Mm-hmm. So every day it feels like, there's another pile of cash that's gone. And then it's, who did we do deals with in the last while that are not responding? So then you're like, where does the cash come from? Hey, it's
well, this is one of my not concerns, but I think one of the slightly short-sighted parts of this VAT provision, the possibility of pushing your VAT liability back effectively. A lot of the time, the VAT, the issue is for the person paying the invoice. Yeah. So let's say you're a recruiter into healthcare, for example, where they're not VAT registered businesses, so the recruiter is, not the end client, right? So they're having to pay out the VAT, which is then going to the supplier. So let's say the recruiter in our example, the recruiter's then saying, right, well, I can take a VAT holiday. Yeah, and because they're taking a VAT holiday or pushing back their VAT payments, they're effectively sitting on that additional cash. Right? And that additional cash would actually benefit the healthcare organization more, the care home, the domiciliary care, but whatever it is, they would benefit more from not paying it. So it might even have been a better idea to say, actually, don't charge the VAT at the moment.
Yeah.
Pay, get your clients to pay net, and then and then we'll deal with the VAT later.
Yeah.
It causes massive management problems, obviously, because the HMRC can only know about a VAT when it's on the return. Yeah. They don't know what your invoices are. This cost now is something else.
Where do you stand on all the redundancies last week? Are you in the camp of, okay, swift and decisive action is good because the death by 1,000 cuts that happened to people in the last recession is the way to go? do you feel like it was a bit knee jerk? Where do you stand on all that?
I think it's difficult to sort of make a general assumption. There are so many different agencies out there running on so many different bases in so many different markets with their own different financial positions. I don't think it would be fair to make a broad assessment of all of their positions in one go.
Yeah.
I've often thought that decisive action is actually the best approach. Thankfully, I've never been in a position where I've had to make any redundancies or consider any redundancies within our business. But I like to think that if that were ever the case, I would make a decision based on, right, this is where we are today. This is where we need to get to. If unfortunately we need to make some cuts, we make them. That we make sure everybody knows from the outset, this is it. It's a one set of cuts situation. And if you make it past that, then you're good. We've done it on the basis of a considered approach for the future. So I can see real merit in why some people made those decisions. I mean, actually, look, we know where we are. We know the difficulties we've got. If we cut that amount of fat, then we can survive with the rest. We can survive through to the other end of the market. Nobody was to know that 2 days later, the government would turn around and go, don't worry, we'll cover 80% of your salaries.
Yeah,
nobody could foresee that coming. But it's a bloody awkward conversation now, isn't it? Because they're saying it can count people that you've made redundant as well. But what's this letter about? Oh, this letter is to put you at risk of not being redundant anymore. Would you like to come back and sit at home and get? Yeah, that's an awkward conversation for anybody.
Yeah, I think also getting caught in this, any of those people who were on the fence whether they wanted to do this as a long-term career will probably just go, do you know what? Sales isn't for me, because you have to accept that there's the upswings and downswings, and some of these people who people assume are rich, who are running agencies, they're really not. They've invested it back in. They've got a bit of funding. They've grown. They've taken out a bit of money, not a lot. People aren't as wealthy as other people assume.
Do I get to go back into my default preaching around the difference between preparing for an exit, big boatload of cash, and actually earning money as you go along?
Let's go. Let's talk about that, because I'm all about doing that.
We were talking about this. Yeah, we were, me, Mark Sanofsky were talking about this in the pub. What is it, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, maybe even a year ago?
Yeah, when it was boom time.
Yeah, when we were allowed to be in a pub, for starters. So I remember we were talking about this, and the fact that my view is that too much of our market, too much of the recruitment space is focused on that end goal.
Yeah.
Exit well, buy yourself a yacht, boat drinks type, exits, 10, 20, 30 million pounds plus exits. It's a bit like professional footballers, right? How many people play football in this country? And then how many people earn money like David Beckham used to earn?
Yeah.
It's like what, 0.001%. So you need to be, I've always thought, you need to run your recruitment business on the basis that you can actually take good money as you go. Because also, if you're aiming for an exit, you need to be able to show a buyer, whether they're a PE investor or whether they're a trade buyer, that this is a business that was able to make you money as it went, and you were able to take money out as you went. Because that's an attractive proposition, right?
Yeah.
If you're saying the only reason this business has grown, and everyone loves that 25, 30, 35% growth year on year, every year. If you're only doing that because you're not taking any money out of it, then it's a bit false, right? You need to actually be able to make some money out of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The other thing that Mark said to me, he said, when this dip comes, the people who have those unbelievable offices in Manhattan, it's not sustainable. So that's a real worry. And I think maybe, I'm a big proponent of being able to do this remotely, and I believe that the market will swing much more towards remote after this, and people will always steer back to it. But people weren't happy to work at home during the crisis or during the virus. Well, that's not a fair comparison,
No.
I suspect when the good times come back, companies are going to have smaller offices in in key locations, and then they might have a bigger distributed team to prepare for this type of thing ever happening again. It only stands like this is probably just fast forwarded the remote working revolution that was coming.
Yeah, but I don't even think, I think if we remove the virus and crisis and all that side of it, and people will see the benefits of that working environment and that working approach, the remote working approach. I think the focus won't be, okay, when the virus goes in it, we'll go, or we'll get a vaccine, or we'll get whatever, right? But when we get out to the other side of that, that issue will have gone. But I think people will then be able to reflect and say, actually, do you know what? Working remotely was really good for these reasons. And this worked really well, and that worked really well. Yeah. And actually, I like that. I don't want to go back.
Hayes didn't even have their Citrix solution to be able to have people work remotely. Like they were, so they just got it up from what I'm hearing last week. At the end of last week. So to think that they hadn't even prepared, that this wasn't even on their horizon, it just blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, so any sort of contingency, right? Any sort of ability to do. I suppose their estate is, office estate is broad enough that if they had a fire in a building, it wouldn't be a major problem.
Yeah.
Right? But this is the equivalent of all of their buildings burning down at the same time. And I suppose you could see why you don't prepare for that, because the odds are pretty low, right?
I know. Okay, let's finish on a lighter note. Talk to me about what it's like homeschooling. What does the backdoor Barry family tag in, tag out situation with the lovely Tallulah look like?
Yeah, so Tallulah did the first shift today, and it's been called, Huxley, my eldest, is really into his Harry Potter. So it's the Cullen School of Witchcraft and Wizardry started off today. And bless Tallulah, she even put on my court gowns to make herself look like a wizard. So it was quite a lot of fun. I'll be honest with you, I've not, apart from planning and helping set it up, today was a work day for me. So I've not had cold face involvement of it yet. But from what I've heard from the squeals of delight downstairs, it seems to have gone pretty well. And you know what? The schools around here have been brilliant. So we're down in Hove, and the schools have been brilliant. There's been a lot of equipment and a lot of materials provided, and a lot of remote learning opportunities. So everybody seems to really come together in that respect. The future's bright if that's schooling for the future. Let's put it that way.
Your youngest is 3 or 4?
3.
She's still 3. Okay.
3 going on 30.
How does she go being in a classroom situation with the big brother? What's that like?
She seems to have really loved it, but she thinks she's the teacher. She always has done.
Yeah.
This is a child who at the age of 18 months would scribble on a bit of paper and go, "Daddy, look, I've written my name." And you're like, "Yeah, sure." Yeah, she seems to love it. The idea of
my son
in a school with a big brother.
My son is still chewing the book at 18.
That's maybe the boys versus girls thing, right?
Yeah, the Doherty G. We're late bloomers, I'm still waiting.
Yeah, you've not long moved on from chewing the book yourself, also. So
tell me, we get out the other side, Barry. What are we going to do to celebrate? We're going to do a suppliers party. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to take a leading drinking stand from?
It's definitely going to involve a pub, or quite a few pubs, I imagine. We're trying to have a bit of fun as we go along. A bunch of mates, we play poker every month, and we've actually set up an online poker room. So we're going to use Teams, and we're all going to be on there having drinks at our own houses while playing poker online. Let's not focus all the fun on the afterwards. I think we still got to enjoy ourselves as we go along, right? Enjoy the small victories as they happen. It can't all be doom and gloom.
And then me and you have to get over to our friend in Dublin, and not with a baseball bat to get the people who have to pay me to meet the nice people.
Yeah. With the wallet to buy some drinks.
Yeah. You're buying. All right, brother. I will let you go. I know you're busy. I know how hectic it is. Thanks for the advice. If anybody wants to find you, LinkedIn's the best place, right?
Yeah, Barry Cullen. I think there's even a hashtag backdoor Barry. I think you can find there. Just don't do any Google image searches.
All right. Talk soon.
All right, pal. See you soon.